First thing I'm going to say is this is not water that I am drinking. This is water that I am cleaning to put back towards laundry for the next cycle. Now would be a good time to say that this system works. I've been doing this the last 4 or 5 weeks now. So I do laundry, I keep catching the water and reusing it, and it's working. Now, how do you say if it's working or not? Basically, I smell the water. Is it really awful or not? If it gets really bad, I'm just going to dump it out and start with fresh water. I kind of have to babysit it, so it's not fully developed yet. At this point, I'm just doing it because it works, and it's not that big of a deal for me to kind of, once an hour walk out and make sure something isn't overflowing. I don't have to pump it, it just percolates its way through the sand. More details on the video, but basically it just goes through sand. And for several of you who commented the last time I experimented with this, yeah, you were right. Every time I tried it on a smaller scale, I wasn't real happy with the results, but it wasn't until I went up to trash can scale that I really saw that it was working. Alright, welcome back. Here we go again. I'm pretty sure this was in Thailand. They came up with a system to filter water that had become contaminated by agricultural chemicals. And they tested it for like chemicals and pathogens and like E. coli and a bunch of stuff. And it was passing city level tests, like it was as good as city water. Okay. They had 4 tanks, and then they would pour in different levels of sand and gravel and charcoal. So it was percolating through 3 layers of these tanks, and then at the top it just filled up the 4th tank. So it was actually 3 tanks were filtering. The 4th tank was a reservoir, and then they just had a tap on that. They had a water supply coming from their well that was contaminated, but they still had pumps and a pressure system coming in, and so they just used PVC piping. A couple of years ago, when I first came out here, right after I got my washer and dryer, I was hauling water from the local town. I had a water tank that I could put in the truck, and I would haul out a couple 100 gallons at a time. So quite often do laundry right out of the tank in the back of the truck, and then anything left over I would put into my other storage tanks until I got the big tank. The problem is this year I sold my truck, so I don't have a practical way to haul water from town. Laundry is by far the biggest user of water out here. I don't think I've gotten as much rain this year as I have in other years. I'm doing okay. I'm not worried yet, but I've got maybe 500-600 gallons in my main water tank right now. That's plenty of water to last months. It does rain during the winter, a little bit. The last good rain I had was about a month ago. I got about 150 gallons of usable water out of that. Okay. That'll last quite a while, but it doesn't last very long doing laundry. So in the bus, I've got a washer and dryer, normal old type washer, not the new high efficiency, but the more standard one. Not ancient, but the normal washer that's not the high efficiency. I've had that for a couple of years. I've got the bus plumbed with intake water coming in from my main tank. I've got a drain system that goes out, so it's already set up and works pretty well. What I've started doing though is instead of letting the water go from the washing machine into the drain, I took the discharge hose and I put it into a 35-gallon trash can that's inside the bus. The water, put some soap in there, that's the wash cycle. Then it pumps all that wash cycle water out, which is where most of the dirt is. I put that into this bucket, trash can. The second cycle is the rinse cycle. It refills the washing machine with just straight water, no soap. That is supposed to take the soap out of your clothes. It agitates it for a little while, and then it pumps that out. So what I do is I pump that into a second trash can because that water is more clean. Most of the dirt is in the first trash can. The second trash can has soap in it, but less dirt. It's basically cleaner, not clean, but cleaner. When I do the second load, because I typically do 2 smaller loads now instead of 1 big load, I take water that came from the rinse cycle, not the dirty water, but the rinse cycle. It's mostly clean. I use that to refill the washing machine. So I've saved half of my water off of, using half of the water from the first cycle to fill the water on the second cycle. That's not ideal, but it's not terrible. That water is pretty clean. It doesn't stink. That's kind of how I judge the water, is what does it smell like. Also, if you put your hand in it, it's not nearly as soapy feeling as the first water. So wash water is dirty, it smells bad, worse, and it feels slippery. You can feel the soap. The second cycle isn't nearly as bad. So load 2 takes rinse water from load 1. That's what we run load 2 on. When that pumps out, I usually only do 2 loads, so then I just put all of the wastewater into this or another one. Okay. The floor level of the bus is higher than the ground, like maybe 2 feet or so. Honestly, I haven't measured it, but it's a good step up if you're stepping in from the back. Okay, so we're taking advantage of the fact that even the bottom of the trash can is above the top of the other trash cans. So I set up a pipe that comes out of the bus, goes down. I actually buried it so I wouldn't trip on it. Comes across the ground, comes back up. But for the first one, what I did is I started, this hose comes up the side on the outside, comes across, goes down. That hose at the bottom goes into a pipe with a bunch of holes drilled in it. So basically this hose just kind of comes into here, and then the water comes out through all the holes. Okay. Then I took pea gravel and filled the trash can up about 2 feet or so. Walked around, found a spot on my property that had a bunch of sand and gravel, and it tends to, as when it does rain, the water washes across and it sort of kind of sorts it for you. Okay, so number 1 is gravel, number 2 is fine sand, and that is solid sand. There's nothing else in there. The water comes in the bottom, goes up, comes across, comes back down, still in the pipe, and then from there it just percolates up. When it gets up close to the top, then it goes across here and starts to fill this chamber. From here it percolates down through the fine sand, and then when it gets to the bottom it comes out this hole, which is a pipe. And to take advantage of gravity, I dug a hole and put a 5-gallon bucket in here. When the water starts to flow, it takes it quite a while to get all the way through this one and then start dribbling out. Like it could be an hour or 2 before the water starts to dribble out, which is good. It's taking its time. It's not just running through. Okay. A couple of years ago, I started on this project, didn't really like the results I was getting. The water coming out still was stinky. Still, it ended up picking up a lot of sand because I'm not using washed sand, and so the water coming out had a sandy color to it. It wasn't very clear. Okay. I don't really care if I have a little bit of sand in the water. That will settle out in the bottom of the tank. So the bottom of this tank probably has sand on it, but that settles out in a few days, and as long as you don't pump the sand off the bottom, that's fine. That's not really a big deal. Is when I wash dishes, I save my water from my sink, and when I take a shower, I save that water. I dump that into this system. So I'm taking, a week or 2 worth of showers and washing dishes, adding it to this system, filtering it through. That water is then used for laundry the next time. The water from your sink, you've already used that water. If you just let it go down the drain, that's a waste. When you take a shower, if your shower water just goes down the drain, you've only used it once. But if you could filter that water and then run it through your sand filter system and use that water to do laundry with the next time, you've reduced how much fresh water you've wasted on laundry. Okay. The nearest laundromat to where I am, I think, is about 50 miles round trip. But there isn't one in the little town. There's a great big sign where one will be coming. That sign is fading already. Another possibility is the electric bike project. Eventually I will get to the point where I can go get my own groceries instead of ordering everything on the internet. So if I go for a day trip, get groceries, do laundry at a laundromat. Honestly, when I worked in El Paso, I did most of my laundry in El Paso. I would just either go to a laundromat or go find a place that you could drop off and they would do it for you. And then you go do something else. Come back the next day, pick it up. If I had much more rain, I wouldn't be doing this, but I don't. So this is kind of the thing is, if I can make the water I have last longer, then I can hold out until the next rain. I have been doing experimenting. I've got chlorine tablets like you use on your swimming pool. I've been adding those once in a while to the IBC. That does seem to help. I didn't do it this last time. I did notice the water was kind of getting smelly. However, because I line dry, and I just checked this about an hour ago. They're still out on the line. They're dry already, but if the longer I leave them out there, they're airing out. I've noticed you just grab a t-shirt and you sniff it. It doesn't smell bad. They actually did have a smell when I put them out. I could say, yeah, these don't really smell as good as they did the last time. Last time I kind of over-chlorinated. I was a little bit worried about that. It didn't bleach the clothes. And again, by the time I line dried, the chlorine smell went away. If you ever wash clothes and don't rinse them well enough, you will feel the soap on your body from your underwear and your socks and so on. I don't feel that. If there was something in my clothes that was bothering my skin, I would notice it. I'm not. They don't smell. I'm putting a little bit of fresh water in, but not very much. I might put 5 gallons of fresh water in, and I'm pulling out over 50 gallons today. Another thought, if I would have bought a high efficiency washing machine, that would probably have helped a lot. I kind of have to babysit it. So it's not fully developed yet. At this point, I'm just doing it because it works, and it's not that big of a deal for me to kind of, once an hour walk out and make sure something isn't overflowing. I don't have to pump it. It just percolates its way through the sand. Coming out here, this water looks very clear. It smells much better than this water. Right? So that's kind of what I'm going by. Is like, well, does it stink? It's not too bad. What I'm thinking, though, the next step, I have charcoal. Not barbecue charcoal, but actually activated charcoal for water filters. If I could just pump it out of the tank, run it through the filter right back into the tank and do that a few times, see how much better it is. Because I think if I can get that water fairly clean, I could take a shower with it. If I could take water out of here, take a shower, and then at the end of my shower, my last rinse, switch over to fresh water. I guess if you have any questions, go ahead and hit me up. If you have water that comes out of the tap and you just don't think about it, this probably isn't worth your trouble. If you lived, in town, your neighbors would complain because this does smell a little bit. It's only worth the trouble if you're faced with, well, I would have to go 15 miles each way just to haul water. So when I sold my truck, I canceled the water account. And for several of you who commented the last time I experimented with this, yeah, you were right. Every time I tried it on a smaller scale, I wasn't real happy with the results, but it wasn't until I went up to trash can scale that I really saw that it was working. You guys were right. Thank you. Okay, this is going to be for the water recycling experiment part 14 or whatever we're up to now. The previous experiments I always did very small. I did like bucket size instead of larger scale. Because I need to be able to process, 100 gallons, 50 gallons at a time, but I only do that once every couple of weeks. That's pipe here with holes drilled in it. I'm going to have this down in the bottom, have a garden hose come into it from one end. I don't care if it leaks a little bit. I just want to make sure that nothing plugs it up, so by having a bunch of holes, the water can still flow in. So I'm going to flow water in from the top down the hose to the very bottom. I'm going to put rocks down on the bottom to hold the hose down, and then we're going to come up a layer of big rocks, little rocks, gravel, and then about a foot of sand that the water will come up through. Washer and dryer are in the bus. I've got 2 trash cans in there right now. And at the moment, those 2 trash cans are full of water. So this one the little one is rinse water, and the big one is really dirty washing water. Okay, so it's got a lot more soap in this one, soap and dirt, and this one is a lot cleaner looking. The bigger can already had some pipes attached to it. So I can open a valve and water will come out the end of here. So what I'm going to do is switch this end out for a garden hose end. I don't want to have to pump water that's dirty to come to here. I just wanted to let it flow. But if I can get most of the scum to stay in the sand, that's an improvement. By drilling the holes in the flex pipe here, then I can shove a garden hose down into it. This is just so that when the hose is in the bottom, it doesn't get crushed by the rock. Okay, so this way I can run the hose up one side, and that's fine. So water's going to feed down through the hose and come all the way back up. Now, near as I can figure, the purpose of the rocks is just to kind of hold this in place. Also, if I just poured sand right on top of that, I don't think water would flow very good. So I think by having a layer of rocks, maybe I'll come up 3 or 4 inches altogether. Then the water can kind of start coming up instead of hitting sand directly. I think the rocks will kind of help spread the water out so it doesn't just come up in one column. Alright. That should be. Technically, you're not supposed to go down to the road and take the gravel, right? However, this gravel is not part of the road. This gravel washed on off of my property here. So it's kind of a weird thing because this gravel is everywhere, right? But typically it's not more than an inch thick in a lot of places that I've seen. This looks pretty good here, but there's little runs where the water has come across and just washed it out. And for whatever reason, it just kind of stayed here, right? But like over here, there's nothing. So it's just kind of this swath that goes from here to about the corner, right? Now, for reference, back there is the house. So that's about a quarter mile away. So, but yeah, it's like I've walked around on the property before, and every now and then you'll see a patch, but this just happens to be like the perfect spot where it all just showed up in one spot, and it's a nice, perfect for concrete and stuff like that. It's got a lot of sand in it. It's already washed. Now on this side is somebody else's property, so I'm not digging over there. I'm just taking it right off the road, but it all came from this way and it washed down. That's uphill on that side. So there's just, I came down a couple of years back with the truck, and I mean I didn't fill the truck completely full, but I made a pretty good pile in the back of the truck, and I didn't even make a dent in this, So days like today are perfect for coming out here and hauling back a load. And really, I think one load will do it for this water filter I'm doing. I'm not doing any more concrete. So kind of living off the land. Can't eat much of this, but at least you got sand and gravel if you need it. All right, made it back. This is a filter rig I've been using for putting water into the big tank. If I put this down in here and let water percolate through it, this bucket was broken, so it's got holes in the bottom now, so water can come up into it. So if I put this down, maybe have it end up just a little bit above the top, then I can drop a pump into there. So as water fills it up, it should be filtered more than it was, right? This stuff is actually pond filter media. It's made for swimming pools or fish tanks and stuff like that. So it's got a blue and a white layer. I don't know what the difference is, but I do have a bunch of that. So if I just put a few rocks in there to hold it together and then set it down into here, I think that'll work out okay. Hey, that might be pretty close. So if I set that like that, I want to make sure this doesn't float out. Kind of keep it pressed in there, and then the water can come up. So I got enough room, I could put one of my pumps in there. Okay, that's open. Oh, crash. Okay, from there, it's coming out through, oops, it's coming out up and around to there for now. So, if I open this, water flow. It is flowing. I can hear it, kind of feel it going through the hose. I would expect this to probably take a while. Oh crap, I got water already at the surface. That's pretty cool. That's faster than I would have expected. Now it doesn't smell nearly as bad as what's coming out of that, which is a really good sign. I don't see anything coming through the bottom of the filter here yet, so it'll probably fill up a little bit and then start filling that. I might want bigger rocks in here to hold it down. I just want to make sure this one doesn't float up on me. Now we got to make sure that this doesn't overflow. And what I'm going to use is this and this to pull water out of here for now. Okay, it doesn't smell clean, but it's not nearly as awful. The source is about a 35-gallon trash can, and it's about half empty now. It was 80 to 90% full, so it's gone down quite a bit. I'm going to shut the valve off so that this doesn't fill up anymore, and then hopefully this will stabilize, and then we'll get some water coming through into here. This is full of sand and rock. Okay, how many gallons of water will fit around all that sand and rock? It's maybe got 15 gallons of water in it already. This is the dirty water first, and then there's the rinse water, which is a lot cleaner. I'm going to run that second to kind of clean this a little bit so it's not as dirty. It's getting some sandiness, which would make sense. The sand isn't washed, okay? So it's going to be percolating through a lot of sand. It's going to carry some sand with it. I'm not going to drink it, don't worry. It does not stink nearly as much as what is coming from the other side. So this is very encouraging. Then I can see if it's going up or down after that. As soon as I open the tap, I can see bubbles forming. Yeah, that's good enough. I got these off of eBay. They're made for garden hose size, so you can just open it and close it. Oh, crap. That's what I was afraid of. My bucket just floated up. Crap. Huh. I'm gonna have to get some bigger rocks, I guess. Okay. Mostly it's working though. Okay, we're continuing the evolution. So the back of the bus is there. Version 1 of this iteration was on the opposite side. I just kind of thought, it's like, well, if it's there, it's kind of in the way. Back here, there isn't really anything else going on. So if I can make it reach, and I can, so that's how we're going to do it. For now, I'm just going to, when I'm done using it, the black hose there, I'll just roll it back up and put it back into the bus. So that'll be good enough for now. Oh, the way this is set up, this hasn't changed, except I had to pull some of the sand out just to get it to move. The garden hose, the green hose, goes down and in. Then there's a piece of this black polyflex pipe that's got holes drilled in it. So the hose goes into the black hose, across the bottom. Oh, and I injured myself. Across the bottom. And then there's gravel, first rocks, and then gravel and sand coming all the way up. So this side is more pea gravel sand, and then this side is going to be the fine sand. Okay, so it comes down to the bottom through the hose and then percolates back up. And then I added this bulkhead fitting here. From there, it goes across and into the top of this and then filters down. This fitting is below the level of this one, so it'll kind of go in and filter all the way down, and then when it hits the bottom, it'll come back up to here, and then this will be going into like a bucket. So it'll be going through pea gravel first, and then I've got these two. This one is actually swamp cooler media, and this one is actually pond filter. So I'm going to just put this right over top of that fitting down here. I don't know how well that's showing up. Yeah, that should be right. So there's a black fitting right there. There we go. Okay, so there's a black fitting there. So I'm going to take these two blue pads, set them over that, take some of the rocks, hold it in place. And then I'm going to fill up this whole thing with that sand. That's going to be the fine sand. So that should pick up most of the rest of the contamination. And then it'll strain itself through that filter, which will eventually get clogged up probably. So I'm just at the point where water's starting to trickle in here. So it's going to be a while. But I think I got enough headroom so it's not going to overflow this too much to where I can't come out. Because it's coming in through a 5/8 garden hose and it's coming out through a 1-inch fitting. There we go. Good. So we'll just now keep an eye on that one. So for now, I got to keep an eye on the washing machine though. Okay, it's a medium load. This is the wash water. I'm going to get as much in here as I can. I'm hoping this doesn't overflow. It'll be close. Okay, so we're up to the little edge line there. Come on. It's about noon. We should have plenty of solar power. There we go. So we're going to get a little more water now. But it actually dropped down 1/4 inch already. Okay. After I do this a few weeks, I'll get a better idea of how much, how big each cycle actually is, kind of thing. And then everything starts shaking. This used to be so funny when I was in the front working, and you'd go into spin cycle and everything would just like, you were looking at the computer and everything was wobbling. Kind of funny. Okay, now I got to fill this, so hang on, we'll come back. Anyway, so I'm going to dump all these buckets into the washing machine and refill them with semi-fresh water. I'm going to use some of that, I think. Also, I've got rainwater in that one, so I want to get that in here, so let me go do that now. Okay, rinse water coming out. Pretty clean. I'm going to put a lot of this back in for the next load. What I did this time, and I think it's a better idea, I did underwear and socks first, and that used mostly rainwater, so that'll be a lot cleaner. And then the towels and the t-shirts will be the recycled water. Now after this, it's going to go through 2 layers of sand, so it'll be fairly clean anyway. But so this water will go in for the next load for washing. Yeah. Cool. This will overflow first, so I can see bubbles coming up. Good. But compared to dirty laundry water, this stuff already smells better than what's over there. A lot of that scumminess, I think, is just coming out of the sand itself, as much as anything. So I think that'll get better over time. Now I also got another wet spot, so I'm looking to see if I got any more. Yeah, I got a leak on that elbow down there, so I got to work on that. But I do finally have water coming out, so that's good. I had the first load hanging on the line to come back here. I'm wearing my headphones. I happened to look in. It was discharging into the little can, which was completely to the top. I don't think it had really leaked yet until I jumped in there and tried to start bailing it into the other can that had more room. And then I spilled it. So the good news is the school buses are rubber floors. They're kind of made to be washed out once in a while. So I'll admit I'm a little disappointed it's slow, but it's working. So inside water, like out of the sink, is pretty clean. So I just dump it straight in here to give it a little shortcut. This isn't very much, but since I was coming out anyway. All right. This is a peanut butter jar. That's noisy. It's got a chlorine puck, like a swimming pool chlorine puck. So I got that floating. Help to knock the stink down a little bit. I'm kind of torn because I don't want to contaminate the pumps, but they probably would be fine as far as getting them dirty in case I use them for drinkable water later. Maybe I'll just pick one pump and mark it for dirty. That's about as full as I want to get that one. All right. Making it a little bit more. Okay. All right, laundry recycling project. Next iteration. The biggest can is going to be for the dirty water. These 2 littler cans are for cleaner water for now, subject to change. So I've got a hose, black hose there, coming off of the big can. Probably eventually we put a valve on that, but I don't have one right now. That's not glued to something else, basically. All right, so from there, let's see if we can reach in. There we go. Drilled the new hole through the floor, next to all the other holes in the floor. This was the first problem from the last iteration. For testing, I didn't want to drill any holes until I knew this was actually going to work. So I've processed about close to 80 gallons maybe already. So from the last time I did laundry plus the time before, I had some water that I had saved, and so that's already been filtered, and it's promising enough to move forward. Okay, so there's already some filtered water in these 2 littler cans. Oh, thanks David for the cans. Water will be held in the big can. It'll just come through the hose down, and then I dug a new trench all the way back. Down where we can see it. There we go. That's upside down at the moment, but there's a garden hose fitting and a quarter turn ball valve for a garden hose. That will feed into, this is actually the same hose up here. This was a load done with recycled water, okay? Also, as soon as I got the first wash going, I set up the recycler again, so let's go get a look at that. So this is filling, it's come up to here and it's already going into there. And we got output already, so I'll keep an eye on this because this will overflow if I don't pay attention. So I would just have to shut this valve off when it gets full, but it's got a ways to go yet. Okay, this is the rinse water from the second load. Just keep an eye on that so it doesn't overflow. And this one is the one that's feeding out. There's a valve or a pipe down there. So that's already dropped down because you can see the soap line there. So that's still running down, which is good. And I keep this one as full as I can because that gives it just a little bit more pressure because we got the height of the water in the can plus the drop from here out to there. So the fuller this is, the better. Anyway, yeah, this is working out good. And this is what, second or third time I've done some water recycling for laundry, so it's getting to be, I'm getting a better idea what I need. As always, thanks for watching, and comments are always welcome. Special thanks to all my Patreons, people that are keeping me alive. Patreons and supporters of the channel. There are people who are donating money through Patreon, there are people that are helping me in other ways, and there are people that are sending me care packages, and they aren't always Patreons. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for clicking like when you see a video you like, and subscribing, and all that good stuff that everybody says, right? If you made it through the first 5 minutes, thanks for staying with us. Alrighty, well, that's it for now, and stay tuned for the next one. The next video will be out pretty soon, and that'll be back to building the electric bike project. Bye for now.